Good morning. It's Wednesday morning, time for chapel. Hope that you're awake, alive, and enthusiastic. Is that the expression? A lot of things to think about. I know a lot of people who have been on here have talked about how much they're missing camp and other things of that nature. And for some, there are a lot of emotions involved with that. I'm missing my second camp now, and it was a hard decision. I know for David and Melissa and everyone about camp here, because I know it was a hard decision for us in Virginia too, to decide to call off camp. I would really like to have been there, but sometimes things will come upon us that just change everything. And how do we deal with that? What do we do with that? There was a man one time, after spending 3.5 hours enduring the long lines, the rude clerks, the insane rules at the Department of Motor Vehicles. He stopped after he finally got done there at a store, then a toy store, because he had several errands he was trying to do, but this took a good portion of his day at the motor vehicle department. And afterwards, as I said, he stopped at a toy store because he wanted to pick up a gift for his son. And he went, he found his selection, he found what he wanted. It was a baseball bat. And he brought it to the cash register. And the person at the register said, "Will that be cash or charge?" And he snapped back angrily, "Cash!" Then he realized how he had said it and all of that, and he apologized for his rudeness. And then he explained, "You see, I've spent the whole afternoon at the Motor Vehicle Bureau, and I'm a little upset, and I apologize." Then the clerk asked, "Shall I gift wrap the bat, or are you going back there?" Was he going to take the bat back to the Department of Motor Vehicles? You know, everyone has those days. And perhaps you have. Maybe you're having one even today. There may be traffic, deadlines at work, rude customers, fussy children, registration for classes, all kinds of things that may cause these. And there are perhaps some days that you're tempted to maybe even stop off at the store and buy a baseball bat. Hopefully not. But we all have days like that, maybe even today. So what is the key to surviving all of this stress, so-called, that we encounter? Well, simply this. We just have to decide that we are not going to allow people and circumstances to determine our attitude. Now, I said it was simple. I did not say that it was easy. Simple, maybe, yes, but easy, perhaps not. James chapter 1, verses 19 and 20 says, "So then, my beloved brethren, let every man be swift to hear, slow to speak, slow to wrath, for the wrath of man does not produce the righteousness of God." James I think it was his design, and I think that he understood this and knew this in the way that he starts this off. And that is that his readers were familiar with these facts. They're familiar with these things about slow to speak and slow to wrath and all of that, but swift to hear. He knows that they know that. But he's given them a reminder, and it's not bad to get a reminder sometimes. We need to have a ready disposition, a willingness to listen. To listen. We may not always want to do that, but we should. Because people may know something that we don't. People may have experienced things that we haven't. Or maybe they've experienced things that we're experiencing already, and so they can advise us. For whatever the reason, we need to be ready to listen. Slow, then, to begin speaking, because sometimes we just speak too fast without thinking. Wrath is a violent emotion that results in men having a bad attitude, a wrong attitude. The wrong results come from wrath, and it can only bring about trouble. You know, we have been given, as you can see, most of us, 2 ears, but only 1 mouth. We've heard this before. 2 ears, 1 mouth, 1 tongue. And so maybe it is that God designed us to listen more than to speak. The ears are always open. There's nothing to close them off. There's no flaps there that close in or anything else. Nothing that closes down. We have ears, 2 of them. They're always open, ever ready to receive instructions. But the tongue, you see, is surrounded. It's got teeth in front of it, some lips that we can close and keep that tongue inside. Keep it surrounded so that it doesn't go or get out of bounds. Wrath is uncontrolled anger, as we were talking about earlier. I have sometimes had occasion to regret that I have spoken, but never have I had a regret, really, that I was silent. Now, we can go too far with silence, too, and not speak up when we should, but usually that goes much better than speaking before we're ready. Talk little, work much. Maybe that's what we need to do. Solomon said, "In the multitude of words there wanteth not transgression, but he that refraineth his lips doth wisely." Proverbs chapter 10, verse 19. And then in Proverbs 29 and verse 20, it is said, "He that guardeth his mouth keepeth his life, but he that openeth wide his lips shall have destruction." Or rather, that's Proverbs 13 and verse 3. And then, "See thou a man that is hasty in his words, there is more hope of a fool than him." Proverbs 29:20. So the degree to which we listen to these words and that precept to be swift to hear, slow to speak, and slow to wrath will in a large way reveal how stable our character really is. Because you see, a person who is full of wrath, whether it be missing camp or other things, whatever it may be, they're just not really equipped to listen to the presentation of the truth, or for that matter, to do much of anything that's right if we're angry all the time. And there's too much of that in the world right now. And what is condemned here, of course, is personal anger, which when it boils up and boils over, it makes it almost impossible, if not impossible, for us to work the righteousness of God. How can we do the righteousness of God if we're angry? Or to do the things that the righteousness of God requires. And what is that righteousness of God? Basically, it's just doing what's right for God. It's the state or the condition wherein we are in a right relationship with God. And so as we go through our day today, as we go through our day every day, I hope that we all may deal with the difficulties that we encounter with the Spirit of Christ. Deal with our difficulties with the Spirit of Christ in patience and love and quietness, and maybe just being silent for a little while we think what we really need to do.